People run past dungeons with green butterflies all the time. Many of these people claim that they're point 0.1 dungeon enchantments, but that's not at all what they are. In this video about group dungeons, I'm going to give you all the information you need to know about them. For anyone who doesn't know, group dungeons can be accessed by the large blue entrances in the open world. They spawn randomly and from opening group dungeon maps. Group dungeons can be found in a variety of 4 factions: Heretic, Morgana, Undead, and Keeper. There's also a portal entrance which has one random type out of the 4 possible ones that it could be. It is recommended to have around 3 to 5 players doing them. They may contain anywhere from around 1 to 5 floors. At the end of the dungeon, there's a final boss which is indicated by a marking on the ground. There are also other bosses before the final boss that you can encounter which unlock chests or fame or silver buffs. The loot that is found in these chests corresponds to the tier zone that the dungeon is in and its enchantment. The fame and silver buffs only last a couple minutes, but are usually around 50% increases. Here, the group dungeon is completely based off of what tier zone you are in. The enchantment, on the other hand, is completely dependent on how long the dungeon was last done, assuming it's one of the randomly spawned dungeons. If you're opening a mapped group dungeon, then the enchantment will be the enchantment of the map. To find the tier of the map, just press M and click on the zone that you're in to see the tier. The enchantment can be quickly deciphered by looking at the color of the butterflies on the outside of the dungeon. Contrary to what many people think, flat tier maps have green butterflies in front of them. Point 1 maps have blue butterflies in front of them. Point 2 maps have purple butterflies in front of them, and point 3 maps have yellow butterflies in front of them. If you see a group dungeon that has green butterflies in a tier 7 zone, that means that the group dungeon is a flat tier 7 dungeon with no enchantment. Real quick, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for more Albion online content. Once you make your way into group dungeons, it's pretty self-explanatory. There are groups of mobs to kill as well as mini-bosses with the possible chests and buffs that I talked about earlier in the video. In order to unlock the chests and buffs, you have to kill a certain amount of mobs in that dungeon floor that the chest or buff is on. You also have to kill any mobs that get aggroed onto you. These mobs could have been aggroed by another person who ate out, but they still have to be killed in order to claim the rewards. Let's get into the important part now. What are the rewards of these dungeons? In other words, how much fame and silver can you make from them? Since there are so many different tiers, I'll focus on the cheapest one for its value and not incredibly hard to do. That is the 8.1 group dungeon. After doing a bunch of these and averaging the total fame and silver that I received, I got the results of 620,000 fame from each dungeon, and this is not including any buffs, and around 100,000 silver per dungeon. This, however, doesn't include how much in loot drops you make. The loot drops are completely random, but obviously in higher tier dungeons and higher enchantment dungeons, you're going to be getting more and better loot. I can't say for certain how much you'll be making from each tier in an enchantment dungeon, just because in the 8.1 dungeons, I would walk out one time with 1.6 mil of my own loot, and another time with around 550,000 of my own loot. So there is no set number of loot that's guaranteed for each player. It's completely random. Also, a little disclaimer, taking the average of the fame and silver amounts from all my dungeon runs is not going to be entirely accurate, just because these dungeons can have anywhere from 1 to 5 floors. So obviously, doing a dungeon doesn't guarantee that you're going to make around 620k fame from it, because the amount of fame in each dungeon and silver is all over the table. Obviously, these dungeons aren't the best fame farming activity in the game. We can take the average amount of fame that I calculated per hour and multiply it by the average amount of time spent in the dungeons, which was around 33, to get around 1.24 million fame per hour doing 8.1 group dungeons. This is not bad at all. It isn't as good as doing buffed tier 7 static dungeon fame farms, but it is almost equivalent to doing high level HCEs. The silver dropped from mobs in group dungeons is really bad. The multiple chests make up for it though. You could be walking away with anywhere from 200k to 2 mil worth of loot, maybe even more if you get really lucky. It is safe to say that group dungeons are a decent fame farm, and you get pretty good silver if you get really lucky. I really hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.